Pluto revives our essential selves, and in doing so, begins the process of shedding the chrysalis that has allowed us to mature as we transition into a new state of consciousness. This process can be difficult to complete because a part of us is terrified of the unknown. Due to this fear, we remain inside the chrysalis, which with time becomes outdated, and sooner or later, because it didn't come out when it was supposed to, parts of our being suffer some kind of corruption, and by corruption I mean certain atrophy. Sounds ugly, right? Well, it's not for nothing that Pluto is related to what's deteriorated, to what's rotten. However, it's not Pluto that rots. What rots is not surrendering fully to the transformation process, so our self is corrupted along the way. But who can blame us? There are no transformation schools, especially during the first years of life. What is the reason for so much difficulty, of so much guilt, shame, and fear? In my opinion, we are programmed to evolve. The ability to reconstruct our essential geometry is a human quality that it seems we have come to develop and that is closely linked to free will. In fact, Pluto activates our compulsions, that is, the instinctive behaviors that arise almost automatically. Humans have to learn to get off of that ancestral egg that envelops us as soon as we are born, and that in some way arises to keep intact the geometry of our essential being. This is where the rebirth attributed to Pluto comes from. The question is, we will dare to spread our wings and fly into the unknown, or we will prefer to stay inside the chrysalis, protected forever? Considering the last time we had Pluto in Aquarius was in 1777, we have little information about the personal consequences of this transit. However, Thomas Moore, the Irish writer, poet, and lyricist, born in 1779, with his natal Pluto in the second house in Aquarius, can show us something about this position through his words. The second house is traditionally the house of money, but in reality we associate it with money because money allows us to buy food, clothes, services, and everything we need to survive. So there must be a more organic explanation of the second house, which is closely linked with the energy of Taurus. For example, what does the second house symbolize for my cat? In her case, the ability to hunt her own food is a typical second house characteristic of her meow to tell me that she's hungry. In the second house, we see what resources we have at our disposal to provide us with what we need to live. The sign found on the cusp of the second house indicates the way, the style in which we face this primordial aspect of our existence. The planets represent different expressions of our essential geometry. Pluto's transit confronts us with what we need to take a deeper look at, what we have avoided seeing until now. When Pluto is in Aquarius, it comes to free us from social conditioning that keeps us trapped within a cultural structure, the status quo, that does not allow us to do something different, unique, new. This combination in the second house leads us to investigate the origin of any insecurity we have about our abilities to be self-sufficient using personal genius. When we interpret the transits of Pluto, it is very important to take into account the natal position, since the transits actually assist the evolutionary path described by natal Pluto, As I just mentioned, the transit through the second house awakens the insecurities we feel regarding our ability to supply ourselves with the essentials for subsistence. Pluto comes to clear up those insecurities, and once we do, we go a step forward on the evolutionary path indicated by the natal position. But of course, Pluto, as the god of the underworld, can take us to landscapes of our subconscious that we don't even want to look at. Instead of freeing ourselves from social conditioning, we cling more to it. This is how the transit of Pluto in Aquarius can lead us to join groups, and by groups I mean what makes us feel part of a community, including friends, that limits our individual freedom for the well-being of the group. In this way, we avoid feeling the fear that any type of social marginalization causes us. In the second house, the insecurity we may feel intensifies every time we use our personal resources in an unconventional way, and yet it is exactly in those moments that Pluto in Aquarius opens the door to the basement of the subconscious, so that we can ask ourselves, where does this fear come from? In any case, Pluto in the second house, both natal and by transit, arouses us the deepest fears related to the possibility of being able to supply for ourselves with what we need to live. There may be ancestral memories of famine, poverty, or not being up to the task. These are memories that are stored in our DNA and even in the memories of the soul. The evolutionary work is to be reborn in a new reality, free of past conditioning. If the second house cusp is in Capricorn, Pluto has long been in our second house. In Capricorn, Pluto has confronted us with our internal authority or the lack of. We have had to investigate how social values have influenced the use of our potentialities, and we have had to learn to follow our own rules in order to feel some kind of personal power. This evolutionary work will continue until November 2024. However, Pluto's entry into Aquarius in March 2023 can give us a hand. We will feel a great desire to free ourselves from the structures that limit our potential, and we will have 23 more months to continue creating an internal base on which to build our material reality according to our own objectives. If the second house cusp is in Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius revolutionizes the way we use our internal and external resources. Now, more than ever, we are going to feel an imperious desire to exercise our personal freedom, and our focus is intensely directed towards material independence. Pluto will bring to the surface the insecurities that don't allow us to be ourselves when it comes to self-sufficiency, and external actors could appear to make us face our deepest fears. Pluto-related crises, while they can be felt intensely, arise so that we can access our ancestral memories and the subconscious behaviors that control our daily lives. Whatever happens, we are going through a transformation whose goal is the regeneration of our individual freedom, so we can use our potentials, our inner resources and external resources in a unique way, regardless what other people think of us.